everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Madeline and I create crafting content here on YouTube. In today's video, I have another needle repair video for you. So previously I've put out two videos where I showed different ways I've had to repair my interchangeable knitting needles. So I'll link those up above if you're curious. And today, unfortunately, I have another broken knitting needle. So last night I was knitting some socks, and these are my all-time favorite sock knitting needles right here. I knit my socks 2 at a time using magic loop. So these are my Lykke size 0, and it's about a 40-inch cord here. But even though these are my all-time favorite knitting needles for socks, they do tend to break a lot. And the reason they break, of course, makes sense, right? We have a wooden tip here. It's fairly bendable, but if you accidentally sit on it or do anything really, anything to make it mad, it will break. So I have a broken side here. So what happened first was that it actually just splintered off and was kind of tilted like that. So at first I thought maybe I'd just be able to stick it back down, but then unfortunately, as I was looking at it, it broke all the way off. So what I'm going to be trying today is gluing these two pieces together and seeing if it works. This is something that has happened to me in the past, and all those other times I've just thrown away the knitting needles just because these knitting needles are such like a fine point. I didn't want anything along the knitting needle to kind of get in the way of the knitting, right? When you have little ridges and things like that, the yarn gets caught. So this has always been something I was kind of curious about to see if it would work. So today we're going to test it out. So the supplies I have here are, first, I'm going to be using some wood glue for this. This is the Tightbound No. 3 Ultimate Wood Glue. And basically this was just the wood glue I had in my basement. I have a surface that I'm going to be gluing on. I have a little bit of painter's tape just in case I need to hold any of this in place while it's drying. And then I have a paper towel that I'm going to use to wipe off the excess around the outside so that that surface remains fairly smooth. So I think the key here is going to be to make sure that I get just the right amount on this joint between the two. So the way it's splintered is that there's kind of like 1/2 of a triangle on each side here. Let me get them facing the right direction, and you can see then they just kind of fit together right like that. So I need to push those two together, but I don't want the glue to take up too much space to where it gets bulkier and this little point down here sticks out too much. So first I'm gonna open up this wood glue and see how fast. So it's actually a little clogged, but I think that's gonna work in my favor. So now I'm just gonna go down the edge that's attached to the cord, and I'm just going to add a little tiny bit all the way up. I'm going to lay the other half right on top. Now this is where I think I may have to use some of the painter's tape, because naturally they don't want to stay together. Try to get rid of any of those lumps of the glue. Now I'm going to use the painter's tape at either side of this join. So you can see right there on this side that 1/2 of the splinter is sticking out just a bit. So I'm going to tape that down. And now I'm going to tape down this other side as well. Okay, so this is what the join is looking like right now. So now I'm going to let this dry for a bit. And then I'm going to come back and see if there's any sanding I need to do up here at this side. I think this side's actually going to be pretty good, but this side still looks like it's stuck out just a bit. So once this dries a bit, I'll come back and show you. Okay, so it's now 24 hours later, so let's peel off this tape and see how it worked. So overall, I feel like it worked really pretty well. The join down here, I think, turned out really nice. You can see there's a bit of an opening right there, but it doesn't feel like anything yarn would get caught on. It's more of like an opening this way rather than this way. The one I'm a little more concerned about is this little bump up right there, because that would definitely catch yarn. So what I think I'm gonna do next is I'm just gonna grab a little bit of sandpaper, or maybe even just like a nail file or something, like a really fine grit sandpaper, and just see if I can bring that down a little bit just so that nothing gets stuck on that little bit. But overall, it does feel nice and secure. Sorry if I'm making anyone nervous by bending my knitting needles, but it does feel secure, feels like they're attached really well. So I'm hoping now I can just sand off this little bit and have a brand new set of knitting needles. I'm gonna try out the nail files first. I wear a lot of fake nails, so I have a lot of these mini nail files that have a whole bunch of different textures. So I'm just gonna try the finest one. Okay, so this is what it's looked like now that I've finished doing just a little tiny bit of sanding. And you can see, well, you probably might not be able to see because it's so tiny, but there really aren't any lines that you can visibly see up through this portion, so I can barely tell even where the join is over here. The only spot that's still there is just that one little tiny bit where that top part was peeking out. So what I think I'm gonna try and do here is just take a little bit of the wood glue and just like lightly swipe it right over that little join right there and try and blend it in really nicely just to make that join a little bit cleaner. And then once that dries, I'll come back and try it with some yarn and see if anything catches. I am happy to report that this method did end up working for me. So the knitting needle join is nice and smooth. The stitches moved over it really nicely. Also, my knitting needle still has the same bendability that it used to, which is really nice. So what I ended up doing, just to recap, is first I took some wood glue, just put a little bit in between the two pieces, held them together with a little bit of painter's tape. Then after 24 hours, I took the painter's tape off, sanded it down just a bit with really fine sandpaper, and then I just filled in that little tiny gap that was left. So if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. And if you have any suggestions for how you fixed your knitting needles in the past, I'd love to hear them down below. We're always helping each other out in these fixing knitting needle videos, so I'd love to hear other ways to do this as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.